Welcome to the world famous Bitcoin Original Gangster, the show that takes no shit when it comes to SegWit. On this show, we'll be defending Bitcoin gangster style and exposing the shit in shitcoins. The idea of this show is that you ask us your questions on crypto and we'll tell you all that we know. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way. All the opinions that you hear on this show are opinion and must only ever be taken as opinion. They are never to be taken as any form of advice, family, financial, sexual or otherwise. And on that note, let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. There we go. Ruth, how are we?
I'm good, thanks. I'm hoping that my volume is okay, is it?
Sounds good to me. As Captain Bitcoin would say, it sounds like you're licking my ear.
Oh, God.
Need to have all these expressions to hand, you know, when you're doing a show, because it just makes it more entertaining. So for anybody who doesn't know you, I will tell everybody that you are an official Bitcoin OG. But other than that, please introduce yourself. Let other people know who you are.
Oh God, I wasn't ready for that.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Howard. When did you first buy your? When did you buy your first Bitcoin, and how did you find it?
Oh, okay. Well, I first heard about Bitcoin really, really early. It might have been 2010, either that or 2011.
That
but
is
it was
mega early.
before Max Kaiser started to talk about it, because I remember when I used to watch, him on RT, the Kaiser Report, and I remember my YouTube recommended me a video about Bitcoin, and because I was quite primed for that information, if you see what I mean, because I've always been very interested in technology. I, used to be a web designer. I run an online sort of tech business now.
All right.
So I was kind of very interested in economics. I was kind of primed to hear that information. So when I heard about it, I was like, whoa, that would like entirely solve all the problems we're facing at the moment economically.
Really? You understood it that early?
Yeah, weirdly, yeah. It was like it sort of slotted into a nice, neat hole in my brain. I was like, yes, that is what we need right now. And so when Max
Was this the white paper that you learnt this all from?
No, it was a couple of videos on YouTube. My YouTube obviously recommends me very relevant videos, but
right.
I mean, I couldn't tell you who was in it now and who was talking. It's so long ago.
Do you think you found Bitcoin before Roger Ver?
Well, it didn't do me any good, because what I should have done was to instantly start mining, and I didn't. I'd just got a new baby at that point. I'd just had a baby in 2009, and so I was in the grip of the depths of motherhood.
Oh no! So what would looking back, would you have traded the baby for multiple millions of dollars?
No.
I would have.
Yeah, no. I mean, probably the wrong answer. But no, it was sort of those times are a bit of a blur, to be honest. But I don't know why, but like I was a bit like the same when I heard about the internet back in '94, because I'm like properly old, and so
Oh, you're about the same age as me, Ruth. Can't be that old.
No,
surely.
I'm a bit older than you, I think, a bit older than you. But anyway, I was graduating uni at the time. I was like my final year, and I heard about the internet. I was just like, oh right, so that's where I want to work, because I did a philosophy degree. So, could have ended up anywhere really. But I remember in my final year thinking, oh, so that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it was a similar sort of feeling when I heard about Bitcoin. I was like, oh right, now this is going to just change everything. And so when Max Kaiser started talking about it, I followed him, because he did cover it quite a lot on the show, so that was good. But at the time, I wasn't really geared up to do mining or anything. I was just...
Where did you buy your first Bitcoin from then? Because I mean,
Mount Gox.
Did you? Wow.
That they became available on Mount Gox, the first exchange. I went and bought some because I had been waiting for it, because I knew that I should be mining, but I wasn't doing. And so I was getting more and more kind of pent up frustration of not being able to get any Bitcoin, and I knew that this was the time to do it. So immediately it became available. I had to wire money to Japan. Sorry, changing position. I had to wire money to Japan, and it was the right pain in the ass. My bank didn't make it any easier, and they took a big commission as well. I remember thinking, "Oh, that's half the money gone on the bank transfer itself."
All right.
But it was worth doing, because although I didn't buy that much because I didn't have a lot of money because I've got small children at the time, what I did buy meant that I've never actually been in the red.
Wow, very good.
All these years, I've never actually ever sort of fallen below, what I invested in it, or come close. So, I'm really glad I did it. And
What was the
obviously,
price
it
that you
was
bought in at, if you don't mind me asking? How much was it?
$30. $30.
Really? Wow, you're a legend. Legend buying Bitcoin for $30.
Well, it was my first one that was $30, because of course I scaled in, thinking scaling in is going to be the way to do it, and I scaled in during one of those big run-ups. So I probably got a couple of Bitcoin for $30, and then the rest for a damn sight more than that. But what it means basically is that I've kind of I've seen all the crashes. I've witnessed the whole ups and downs, and to be honest with you, I'm so inured to the price movements. It just doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I suppose you would be if you've been in it for that length of time because you're used to it. But it's like when you're first buying something, you're pretty much like winging it. You're flying by the seat of your pants. You're going on the words of your friends. You're kind of getting excited about it because you don't really know what you're doing. And it's that excitement that can turn to despair and anguish. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing was, I never leveraged, or I never invested anything that I couldn't lose. It was always just play money. And so when I say play money, I don't mean like insignificant amounts necessarily, because they were really significant to me.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, it was never going to be anything that would interfere with my quality of life if I lost it. So and I think that's key, really, because that allows you to sleep. And I mean, just the other thing I would say about having been around for the internet revolution as well, because I was setting up a .com business back in 2000 as well, so I've been through the .com boom and bust as well.
Wow. Wow.
So the thing that strikes me about sort of technology revolutions is that they just take a lot longer than you think they're going to. I mean, they're always. You think that it's all going to be done and dusted in 10 years flat, but it just isn't.
It's never easy. Never easy.
And the first 10 years, it feels like nothing's happening. And I think that's because I remember 10 years into the internet, and I just felt like, God, this is still awful. And I was a web designer, so I was interacting with it all day, every day. But it really wasn't until we got ISDN, and proper kind of bandwidth, that things began to sort of rock and roll. And and even then it was pretty terrible. So I just think patience is key, really, and to realize that technological revolutions take ages, because you have to you've got the kind of the early adopters, but then you've got everybody else you've got to on board, and that's a long process. But people get there. They get there, though. I mean, look at mobile phones and iPads, and the way that we use the internet today. I mean, it feels like nothing's happening, and then suddenly everybody knows how to use it.
Yeah.
I can't remember a time when
Every man and his dog.
Yeah.
So can you tell everybody what you made of, chain splits and coin wars and the creation of these forks? What's your story behind what's gone on?
Well, I've always been fairly hedged, I would say, until very recently, and now I'm 100% BSV.
Just say Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay.
100% Bitcoin, no shitcoin.
Yeah, no, I'm there finally, but basically, I've moved my kind of holdings. I've kind of changed them as my confidence has changed, and so I feel like I adapt very much to changing information. So when Bitcoin when they refused to scale, I couldn't even give you the year now. When was this, like 2015 or 2016 they first started to kind of run into roadblocks, or at least arguments about it. And by 2017 it was clear that they really weren't going to scale, and then we started to have the splits. So I wanted to stick with BTC because I recognized that having the greatest network effect was a big hairy deal. You know, you can't fake that. You can't. It's like literally the time that has passed and the network that has grown during the time that has passed, and unfortunately you can't replicate that. It is sort of simply proof of work, and you know, machines connected to the network and block height, and that can't be faked. And so there was a sense in which I was sort of clinging on to Bitcoin probably longer than I should have.
You mean BTC?
Yeah, BTC. Yeah, sorry. Because yeah, I gotta get my terminology right. But I was hoping that they would come to their senses. Honestly.
Why do you think they didn't?
I just think it's corruption. I think it's acts of the insurance company. I think there's always many forces at work, and I think some of them are financial, and the financial industry didn't really want a competitor. And
So you think that's what's happened? Do you think they've got in and wormed their way and taken control of it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, I agree with that.
I also think that the main players are honestly shockingly stupid at times. It was, don't like to call people stupid. It's not really my.
They are though.
but there's no two ways.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, Luke Dasher, Luke Dash Jr., however you want to say his name. Kind of astounds me sometimes. I'm not saying he's dumb, because he's obviously clearly an intelligent guy, but common sense really sorely lacking. And Adam Back, I don't think he could strategize his way out of a paper bag, honestly, from what I can see. So how they can think that not scaling, refusing to scale is an acceptable way forward for a world currency, it blows my mind. It defies all explanation.
Well, I think some of the key indicators that you were talking about, AXA Insurance and a few others, when Jimmy Song was meant to be doing that debate on the Coinsbank cruise with Roger Ver, he ran off stage because he basically shit himself. Wasn't really sure what he was going to say, because he can't really say a lot, to be honest with you, and he's got this kind of reputation as meant to be somebody who knows what he's talking about. But then Roger sort of placed a bet on the table and said, well, look, I bet that Bitcoin Cash will be. He should have taken it, looking back at that now, because Bitcoin Cash is never going to overtake BTC. It's going to be the first one to burn. But Jimmy Song came back with a counter bet, probably about a day or a couple of days later, which when you look at the wording, basically meant that Roger couldn't win. And I was just like, there is no way that Jimmy Song has come up with that bet on his own. Some crafty politician behind the scenes who has got Jimmy Song's back, clearly probably a puppet master and a paymaster, has said, here, Jimmy, this is what you want to do. And then that politician, whoever it was behind the scenes that gave him that, is thinking, yeah, that's right, we've got him. But I would say relatively intelligent people, let's say for the likes of me and you, I'm just like, Jimmy hasn't come up with that. Therefore, there are other players behind the scenes. Who are you? And why aren't you showing your face?
Well, I just think there are huge unseen forces at work. And I think that they, if you think about what they did, crippling Bitcoin and trying to take the mining fees off chain onto the Lightning Network and Liquid or whatever, it was a masterstroke, because they've managed to take a lot of OGs with them. I was kind of surprised by that. Clearly not the smartest ones, but
the stupidest ones.
Well, on this fairy tale, and they've managed to basically cripple it whilst also still keeping the ticker. So it's the worst of all worlds. They didn't kill Bitcoin, they just crippled it, and so you know, it achieves all sorts of aims, doesn't it? That if you think about anybody who really doesn't want Bitcoin to succeed, then that's a very smart way of handling the threat.
Oh yeah, absolute masterclass
Yeah,
in political deception.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I kind of spotted what they were doing anyway, but I couldn't. But what I couldn't believe is that other people actually fell for it. You know, I'm just like, you know, I've seen that, I've seen this political manoeuvring before. How come how come you lot who can't see this, you know, haven't seen this before? You know, it's
Well, I don't know. Say something a bit controversial here, but I do think sometimes, you know, programmer types who are clearly exceptionally gifted at what they do,
that one thing.
at one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've got the sort of street smarts. I don't know, but this is just, you know, um, what I've noticed during my lifetime is that people who are very, very gifted coders don't necessarily see the big picture very well.
Yeah, yeah, they just kind of like look at it from trying to make sense from their own knowledge and understanding and experience,
Yeah,
which may be
yeah.
quite limited, I guess.
Well, I just don't think they see people's motivations very well either. You know, understanding how somebody might, you know, want to neutralize you without obviously neutralizing you. So that, you know, they're not shutting Bitcoin down, but they are neutralizing you as a threat. And it, to me, it's as plain as, you know, day, but it isn't as plain as day to everybody.
I mean, you do have to wonder sometimes, like, how on earth did they try and persuade these people that something that is useless is valuable? I mean,
Well,
absolute
yeah,
masterclass here is what it comes down to. I mean, especially when they initially they were going, "Oh, store of value is not many use. It's like gold," you know. And I was, and you know, I remember thinking, "Crikey, I can see why people would get confused about that because gold kind of like sits in a bank and doesn't do anything." But that's because gold bullion is already a medium of exchange. They've already extracted it from the ground to give it value so that it
mm,
can be used in trade. But and then when people were getting a little bit tired of, oh, you know, why are we actually holding this, because it does nothing, then it was just like, well, it's censorship resistant money. And I was like, oh, that's a clever one, you know, because they're still sort of like pandering to the anarcho capitalists who want this kind of like, you know, criminal libertarian utopia, you know, where they feel as though they can be like naughty school children and, you know, get away from Big Brother and the teacher and, you know, smoke crack in their own homes and stuff like this. But then I thought, well, hold on a minute. I mean, you've got this was the narrative that BCH started to spin when Roger Ver took the helm. You know, they were just like, yeah, smoke crack in your own home. And it was just like,
well,
right, well, hold on a minute. This is
yeah.
what BTC want as well.
To be honest, Toshi, that was one of the reasons why I wasn't entirely convinced by BCH either. I definitely kept my coins, and I was, you know, I bought a few more, but I didn't go all in like I did with BSV because I didn't really share the mindset of the, you know, um, the not libertarian, what's the
Radical, extremist
the
libertarians.
mindset, and so I basically started taking more of an interest in Dash at that point because I felt like Dash had at least a sort of more of a business-minded approach, and that they were serious about staying, you know, being cash.
Mm,
Again, I didn't go all in there because I still felt that Bitcoin, you know, has the proof of work and it has the network effect, and it's the name that people know,
mm,
and it probably still has the best chance of working because Satoshi's a genius. So, um,
mm.
yeah, effectively, I was sort of straddled and had my risk split between those different coins. So, and when the chain split happened with BCH BSV, I was so delighted and thrilled
Oh, yeah, me too.
because I was feeling fairly uneasy, honestly, about the fact that Bitcoin has been such a sort of an underground coin. I don't want to hold crime coin.
Mm.
You know, I've
Yeah, yeah,
never
me neither.
bought any Zcash or, you know, the other anonymous coins. I'm not interested in that. I don't think that's what society needs right now. You know.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I don't know if you've heard my other shows, but anything that is anonymous is centralized.
Yeah.
It's totally
Exactly.
centralized
If
because
you
whoever it
can't tell if
is,
they're inflating supply, then you're screwed. Yeah.
but also whoever it is that added the anonymity is therefore no longer accountable to anybody. And therefore they have complete control of the system. Whereas let's say if you did have a centralized source, but that centralized source who created this system was accountable to someone, so therefore couldn't do anything that nobody else wouldn't know about, you know, who cares if it's centralized? Because they're accountable. It's whenever a system is anonymity, it's centralized, completely centralized. Yeah, which completely defeats the object of having what they think is censorship-resistant money, when
Yeah.
when they've got a central point of authority and control.
Effectively, you're by holding that coin, you're supporting criminals. Let's be honest. It's not a good place to be, morally speaking, if you are supporting a network that really, is untraceable.
Well, also, if any, as we all know, any network that is supposedly like untraceable and facilitating crime, the government will simply step in and shut it down. That is it.
Yeah.
They will throw all they have at this because law enforcement don't have anything better to do. You give them a project like this, like a crime coin to dig into, and they're just like, right, lads, yeah, great, we've got a project here. They will, and they will just persist like honey badgers until they've got you.
Well, this is it. It's just a matter of time. So they're running down the clock. So when I think probably a lot of people have said this, but it's the same for me. It was Craig's talk that he gave in Arnhem.
Yes, mate. A lot. I've had to go back and re-watch that because so many people have spoken about it.
And the reason why it was not just the detail and the sense that he was talking and the clear vision and scope of what he was talking about. He clearly was Satoshi in that talk.
Had he given any other talks prior to that?
Yes, definitely several.
Or like on his own, because I've seen him in a few panel discussions, but I'd never seen him talk individually on his own like he did at Arnhem.
I think I don't know. It's all a bit lost in the mist of time for me now. But the point was, when I heard him speak and I heard him talking about, what he could do for the poor, and how he could hold government to account, and how this would shine a spotlight on criminal activity. All the moral center that we know and love that Craig has. In spades, and it was at that point that I went, oh, see, this is what I came for. This is why I came to Bitcoin. These are the problems that needed solving. Not, we don't want another form of cash that's entirely untraceable and
another Liberty Reserve.
Because it's digital now, it means that it's supporting criminal activity worldwide. That's not what we wanted. We want something that's going to make the world a better place, a lighter place, and people are concerned about that because they're concerned about their privacy. But my God, we get our privacy taken away from us in far more intrusive ways than Bitcoin, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Right now, I mean, it's gone crazy. We've gone into high gear. But I just think having as Craig calls it, private but not anonymous coin is good enough for me. That's okay, because he's amply demonstrated the myriad ways in which you can protect your privacy. By not reusing the same addresses and splitting your coins into different wallets and things like that. So there's no reason to have anonymity. There's just no reason to have it, and it breaks it if you do. I mean, it just how can you have anything that you trade in that you don't know who the other party is? And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that comes down to reasonable expectation. Did you read my Medium article on that?
I have read that one.
Yeah.
You're right. You can't have any kind of contract with anybody or exchange of goods and consideration if you don't know who they are. There's so many things about it that are so obvious that if you talk to someone who is still a hardcore BTCer, they won't even engage with you on it. They won't engage because they know they've got no counter arguments. So they'll call you a name. They'll get very upset, but they no. But I don't have anybody trying to argue with me these points. Do you?
Do you know? I mean, it's been a long time since I engaged with any BTC or BCHer. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
been a while for me too now. Yeah.
the last time we did that was in was the BSV BCH meetup in London, and what was funny is that there was, even though the meetup was meant to be joined, as in kind of like, BCH and BSV were meant to be united, there was this metaphorical wall between us, a huge divide, where we were, us BSV or genuine Bitcoiners were looking at these B cashers just like they're absolute scum, complete and utter scum. Like, you want your crime coin, you want to facilitate child abuse imagery, you want to buy drugs and smoke crack in your own home. The government's going to shut it down. You're encouraging people to facilitate illegal activity. And you're taking resources away from this amazing technology that could, for the first time ever, bring a real world money to the financial system to help everybody out. I mean, the disdain that I sort of held towards them was quite strong. And everybody else was the same. It was just like, I can't hang around with you because they were like a virus, and I don't want to catch whatever it is that they've got in their head that makes them think they're right when they're wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm not, I don't. I'm really happy that Derek McGill and Stephen Morehouse, I forget their names, and TK and the other guy whose name I've also forgotten.
Really, there's Steve Patterson, Isaac Morehouse, Derek McGill, and TK called me, yeah.
And these are smart guys, and so I'm really happy to have them. But I am still quite shocked that when they roll out the arguments in favour of BCH, it's still, or against BSV, it is still all just focused around whether or not they trust Craig.
Yeah.
And
it's really petty, isn't it? It's like, seriously,
Yeah. But I mean, he's a what would you call him, spiky personality, but so what?
Well, he's Asperger's, do you know what I mean? It's just part of his condition. I think it's really, it's a bit like criticising a one-legged runner for not doing very well in the 100 metres against everyone that's got two legs.
Exactly, yeah. PR is his thing. But having said all that, though, I still think, I love hearing him speak, because I still think that you can, he has so much heart in it, and he has so much skin in the game.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's every time he speaks, you hear his moral centre speaking. I mean, it's not flim flam, it's not technobabble, it's him describing the world that he wants to live in and desperately trying to get us there. And I'll follow that every day of the week, because I have not ever heard that. Have you ever heard Jimmy Song, or Annabak, or any of the BTCs or BCHs for that matter, really speak about morality or trying to change the world for the better? They don't address these issues at all. They don't have ideas for how to uplift people out of poverty. They're not thinking along those lines. They're thinking about enriching themselves. And honestly, if BSV were to go to $5 tomorrow, a la Ari, I really wouldn't give a shit, because or if
I'd be straight down the bank getting loans out.
Well, if it was, I want it to be distributed. I want it to be the most distributed crypto in the world, and it's really, that's what it's about. It's about getting it into as many hands as possible, not so the price of the coin goes up, but so that people have a way to earn money, real hard money that is not going to be devalued by these QE programs and all the rest. It's so important that we give people a way to protect themselves from the government's mistakes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what's important. And I don't care. I know it sounds ridiculous. I mean, I've not got anything against being wealthy, but that's not what I'm holding it for. That's not why I'm here. You know, I could live very happily the rest of my life just as I am. You know, it's really, and I can find different ways of making money. This is not what it's about. Um, if we don't lift everyone up together, then there is no point to this. And I've heard BTCers say on so many occasions, Bitcoin does nothing for the poor. It has no, means of helping the poor. And I strongly disagree. I think if you make an economic system in which everyone can participate and everyone is able to earn money, albeit, not necessarily huge amounts, but they can earn something by their actions, under their own steam, and it gives them a level playing field, and maybe it assists trade as well, because it means that there are fewer trade barriers, and also what I would like to see is sort of George Gilder's vision of decentralizing capitalism again, because it became it has become, and probably even more so after this crisis, so centralized. There are so few companies who are able to exist, and even they are asking for bailouts.
Crony capitalism, isn't it, really?
Honestly, it's disgusting. Really, if you think about it, these enormous companies going cap in hand, and QE, money printing, is a tax on the poor. I mean, because it's proportional, so it means that they lose more money than anyone else as a proportion of their income. So it's a progressive tax is what I'm trying to say. But we must sort this out, because at the moment we have a consolidation of capitalism and into fewer and fewer hands, and there are fewer and fewer companies who are able to survive in this economy, and we have to reverse that trend somehow.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Bitcoin is the best by far mechanism for doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. So what was there anybody in particular when you first got into Bitcoin, or somebody that emerged that you kind of like would championing or cheering on, like Roger Ver, for example?
I always thought he's a decent guy. I still think he's a decent guy. But he's not thinking it through properly. I just think he's his brand of anarchism is gonna
short-sighted, stupid, narrow-minded,
facilitate the wrong people. I mean, it basically means that criminals get a free pass, and is clearly not a great idea. And so he's all right. Really, until Craig came along, I'm just trying to think who. I don't see anybody who has been in it for the long haul like Craig. There is no one really who. I mean, there's people who've come and gone, but a lot of the time they've just sort of exit scammed, haven't they?
Who do you have in mind? What, Charlie Lee?
Yeah, Charlie Lee, but also
Charlie Lee seemed like such a nice bloke.
I've forgotten his name, but the guy who invented Dash. What was he called?
Evan Duffield.
Evan Duffield. He's basically exit scammed as well, isn't he? As far as I can tell. I mean, he switched off his miners, I think, and
is that what he's done?
Well, I don't ever hear about him anymore. Is he still? I had a lot of time for him, but where is he now?
Yeah.
Is he still supporting Dash? I don't even know. I mean, I've long since sold my Dash. I like Dash, but it was once BSV came along, there was just no need for it.
Yeah, no need for any of these things. I mean, it's kind of I actually found myself in, like you, I was kind of like in a bit of a wilderness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with me, I understood Bitcoin. I understood blockchain technology. I had researched so much into it. But what you cannot research is the stuff that's not written in books or not explained on YouTube, which is the market sentiment. that's something that you basically have to gauge yourself
and live through.
Yeah, because you like I said, if you're relatively smart, you just generally think that, well, if you make good decisions, that other people will just simply make the same decisions because that's the smartest thing to do. And when they don't, it's quite shocking.
No, it is, and I think this concerns me a little going ahead into the halving. I mean, I'd love to think River's right that Bitcoin is going to go into a death spiral. Nothing would please me more.
As in like BTC or the whole market.
Well, that's the trouble. I'm prepared for us to go down very low and then rise back out of it afterwards. I don't mind, if that's what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. Let's get it over with. But what I'm a little concerned about, because there's so much money printing, there's so much QE, the stimulus is, America announced was 6 trillion. I don't know what the Bank of England's doing, but some probably equivalent amount in pounds. I have a feeling that will show up in the whole crypto market sooner or later as a big price move. So I'm kind of cross because I feel like they might have their asses saved actually.
Oh right, so you think that like the Federal Reserve might be onto Bitcoin and they're just like, what we need to do? We need to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and we will pump the price of BTC ourselves to keep everybody happy, keep the price going.
Not that so much. More just how going into recessions, even gold and silver go down, but on the way out they go up. So once the threat happens and then the response, the reaction by the government, the overreaction of the government happens, and they throw a shit ton of money at it. The TARP was like 800 billion back in 2008, which seems like a ridiculously small amount of money now.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being a lot more than that, of course, but that was the number they began with, and so I don't know. I just feel like the price of Bitcoin will inevitably rise on the way out, as we go further into this recession, because the value of the dollar is going down. I just don't think I see any way out of that happening. As a sort of just a natural consequence. So I feel like they may well get a free pass here, which they didn't deserve.
Yeah, well, tell you what. I'm just going to bring up. CoinDance actually. Hold on 1 second. Just so that any viewers can see this. There we go. Right. So I monitor CoinDance quite carefully because I find it absolutely fascinating to watch.
Good.
Here we go. Right, that's just come up. Tell you what I'll do. I'll just see if I can screen share with you. See what happens when that happens. Screen share. Oh. Let me know if you can see what I'm looking at. So I've got this, how does that look? This is what I'm looking at. I think that looks pretty cool. I know the viewers can't see this, but I've got OBS opened up next to my desktop. Can you see that?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, how cool does that look?
It does look good. I mean, mind you that BTC is still at 95%. Mind you, that could change on a dime.
It could, but you know what I like? I actually like to look at the mining profitability because I think that speaks absolute volumes. So it's currently 7.6% more profitable to actually mine on BTC than it is compared to BCH, but it's 4.2% more profitable to mine on BSV. And every time I look at this, BSV is nearly always 0.1% ahead of BCH, if not even more. And in my mind, I think I know who's doing it. because it's dangling the carrot. It's just like, here you go, like, and it's kind of evidence that it can be done. It can be, look, it can be always more profitable to mine BSV over BTC and BCH, you know, because of certain entities that, you know, have the power to be able to do that. And I think that shows support for the network, because obviously BTC is not using the blockchain whatsoever, so therefore miners are just simply going to go bust, and BCH is a crime coin that's going to be taken down.
Yeah, basically. I mean, BTC, it's just a matter of time, isn't it? The more successful the Lightning Network is, lol, you know, the more money they'll lose.
Well, also, I mean, the Lightning Network is no different from the banking network that we already have. Yeah, you don't have to use Bitcoin to go through it, but that means that all you're doing is effectively sending data to each other. And if that data is not transferred via, you know, something that is recognized as a money service business and has a money transmitter license, yeah, it's not legal tender. It's as simple as that. Yeah, the Lightning Network is just the biggest load of bollocks ever.
Yeah. And quite apart from the fact that it loses money regularly.
Yeah, loses money regularly. The node operators don't make any money. It's not profitable for them to use. And you know, when the channels are closed, they're meant to be closed, and then they're meant to be redeemed through the blockchain. But you know, in a very short time, when the blockchain collapses because nobody's using it because of the Lightning Network, nobody's going to be able to get their Bitcoin or claim their Bitcoin off the Lightning Network.
Yeah. And I mean, I know the whole thing's so laughable, and as you know, Daniel pointed out a long time ago now, if you transact on chain, there's no way of making any profit, because any profit you might have made is subsumed by the transaction fee. So it's absolutely.
What did you say? If you transact off chain?
Well, if you transact on chain, so you know you can't.
Oh, through BTC.
Just using Bitcoin as intended, can you? Because then you know there's no sense in which a merchant could ever make any money by doing so, because the profit that they might make cannot be extracted because of the transaction fee. You know, if you send £5 and you know £2.50 of that is a transaction fee, then you know you'd be crazy. Why would you ever make that payment? You know, but people do. But people do at the minute. So I mean, I just saw a statistic as well the other day, and I forget exactly what the number was, but it was something like, in order to onboard the world into BTC, it would take like 1,300 years. Or it might
I remember seeing those. Yeah.
I don't know. It was like a lot anyway. So you know, it's not going to happen, and you know, it's no good saying, oh, it'll just be used by the banks. You know, bullshit. The banks wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
No.
It's a shitty system. It's a shitty system that, you know, will cost more and more to transact in as time goes on.
It is insane. I mean, what do you think? What do you think these people over at BCH are thinking? You know, and let's talk about the price as well, because traders don't seem to have any understanding of Bitcoin. Because if they did have an understanding, they would just simply dump all that shit and they would be all in on BSV. It's as simple as that. So I would say that actually, I mean, when you look at the charts and sort of what is being traded and how it's being traded, you know, all the top coins just simply follow each other. I mean, let's have a look at this. So I'll just screen share that for a second. Oh, hold on. Here's capture. That's not the one I wanted. Oh, never mind. Just delete that one. So I've currently got CoinCap up at the moment. And literally, we look at BTC. Look at that. It's ridiculous. I mean, even sort of like it's similar to Ethereum. Similar pattern to XRP. Bitcoin
Well,
Cash is almost identical. BSV is almost identical.
That Bitcoin SV is leading the way constantly now. If you notice, they're leading the market.
Are they, in terms of?
I think so. I think whatever is happening in the market happens to Bitcoin SV first, and then everything else follows. So I'm beginning to wonder whether we're actually leading the direction of the market now. Could be.
It has crossed my mind. It certainly has crossed my mind. And I wonder if maybe that's kind of, signaling, if you like, to miners or other significant people, in the kind of like need to know that that this entity has the power to do what they say they're going to do, to prove themselves. And I have also noticed that, often in terms of the price as well, even when the price goes down or the price goes up, Bitcoin seems to be gaining ground on the shitcoins like BTC and BCH, even if it's just like by a little percent, 1% at a time, 1% at a time. But the fact is, it's coming, and this is what makes me laugh, because you've got the Bitcoin is like clawing away the percentages in terms of like the gap it's got between itself and the shitcoins, and then you've also got to look at the mining profitability as well, and you just think to yourself, it's just kind of like gnawing away, which gives me confidence.
I think this is the thing, is that sentiment changes very, very, very slowly, and then suddenly it flips.
Yes,
and
yeah.
That is true of scientific paradigms. They always say you have to wait until the old scientists die in order to have a paradigm change, and there is some truth in that, really. So you have to wait until all the OGs, in a sense, in Bitcoin have all given up, and they are giving up. I've been watching that for the past few years. They are going away. And when they finally capitulate, I think that's when sentiment will flip.
Yes, and I have a sneaky suspicion, based on what other people have said, that this block reward halving is extremely significant.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a watershed moment. I mean, I think it could be a bloodbath. I mean, the whole of the crypto market could go down catastrophically, potentially.
But miners have to be kept in business.
Exactly.
That's the thing. If miners play an essential role in sustaining the network, so if the market was to tank, somebody has to throw a lifeline out there somewhere.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, Craig has stated, and Calvin on many occasions, that they are in this for the long haul, and they have the ability to sort of minus a loss. I think he said for several years, actually.
Yeah, I think he said about 10 years, didn't he, since staying out?
I can't remember, but the point is, he's not going to let it go, and so
not without a fight.
Exactly, and that's what I'm here for, is for someone to believe in this, and you can tell that Craig is Satoshi because he believes in it so much. I mean, nobody else has demonstrated anything remotely approaching Craig's, what would you say, heartfelt
understanding,
belief and understanding, and
knowledge,
his commitment to it. And as Craig himself has said, I think several times, it's usually like one man that changes the world. You know what I mean? These things do tend to be one very, very committed individual,
and very gifted individual,
and very gifted, and who works for a hell of a long time, has the ability to make real change happen. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the coins that come out of, the coin that comes out of this intact is going to be the one that's got the most committed personality stood behind it, and that is BSV in spades, isn't it? I mean, that's BSV.
It is, but it always makes me uneasy referring to Craig as Satoshi Nakamoto, just because I feel as though it puts him in danger.
Well, yes, I do. I worry about him a lot actually. But then again, he seems to have, you know, these things sorted out and covered, doesn't he? But
Yeah, I mean, I would always encourage conversations like away from that because it doesn't really matter if he is or he isn't. You know, it's irrelevant. It's a basically it's a one-off pump and dump.
yes, well, there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, yes, I agree with you. At this point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and BSV can continue in this now that it's been locked down. It can continue like this, indefinitely, and you know, uh, it. But the point is though that I think if anyone's ever in any doubt about, who Satoshi is, you only have to look at his behavior and everything he does and says. It's not hard to figure this out. It's not hard.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can read the white paper and identify him in that easy. You
You
know.
I think it takes a lot of mental effort, a lot of mental gymnastics to paint him out of that picture. You
Yeah,
know.
it would have to be basically the will to not want him in there to fulfill your own agenda, i.e., Roger Ver and what was that French guy's name? Anne Marie Sachet.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, this is it. It, I think that yeah, Craig's got his failings. He's just a man. He's just a bloke like everyone else. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, he's shown a good deal of selflessness. I think that I don't see anywhere else. You can see that he's fully committed to this project in a way that is above and beyond anyone else. And Calvin too. Actually, I mean, you gotta pay due to Calvin. He's been as solid as a rock through this, and I love the fact that he's constantly on Twitter, sending out the tweets. I think he's absolutely on fire lately.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite nice. You know, he's retweeted a few of my tweets. I'm like, yes, get in there, Calvin.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, he is good PR. He's knows what he's doing, and
Well, those conferences are spectacular, without a doubt. I
oh
think
my
they're
god,
amazing.
I was just absolutely blown away by it. I had the time of my life there because, I mean, what could be better than catching up with people you know online who are, you consider to be friends already, but you know, also talking about your favorite subjects for days, and and also just being treated like royalty at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just the venue and how it's laid out. Just,
It,
you know,
it was
service is fantastic. Setup is brilliant. You know, just absolute quality is how I describe it. Absolute quality. You know, you can tell that he's had a professional sort of entertainment business that's gone to the lengths that they have to
well,
put a great conference on for people.
that's the thing about Calvin is that I get the impression he's a very generous guy. That's what
Well,
the
I hope that I would be that generous as well if I was a billionaire.
well, sure, sure, but I mean, you know what I mean. He's not some remote billionaire who's hiding away. He's living a good life and he's sharing his good life with his good friends. He's doing it right in my book. But I remember walking into the conference the first day and seeing that enormous, what was it, like 100-foot screen, 150-foot screen. I didn't even know how big it was, but it was enormous. And just being absolutely blown away, and it just didn't stop. It just kept coming. Every time you went and sat down, there's snacks and drinks and something planned and somewhere to go and places to sit, and it was just flowed like nothing I'd ever seen.
Oh, was that the first one that you'd been to?
It was, yeah. I've
Mm.
been into crypto for so long, but I've never actually been to a conference because, to be honest with you, I've never felt like there was anything that I could gain by actually going to it rather than
Mm.
it being broadcast. But this time around it's very different because I'm, working on my own PSV project now, and I've got people that I wanted to meet in the flesh and talk to, and
Mm.
um, also just the buzz of it, because I think um, you know, I spend my days and nights thinking about this stuff, and it's so nice to be able to, you know, chat with people who are in exactly the same headspace as you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, in terms
Really
of the
welcoming. Well,
the venue setup that we had this time at Old Billingsgate was sensational. I mean, that was brilliant. The space worked really well. It was packed to the rafters. It was the first one we had in London. Was I think yeah, everybody was a bit nervous because like you know they just literally had
the change split.
the split in the chain, and Roger Ver wasn't coming to the conference anymore, and Jihan wasn't turning up, and
Ten, yeah.
nobody really knew what had gone on, and kind of like people had lots of questions, and like the theatre wasn't really all that full, you know. But because the theatre wasn't really all that full, and then also the where the coffee and the biscuits and you know everything were behind the scenes, it was a it was a more what's the word it sort of brought people closer together. Yeah, we were in a smaller space, which just made it more personable. And then the nightclub at the end of it, you know, on the third day, was just absolutely fantastic. Far more space in that one than there was in the last one. Yeah, not that I'm trying to rub it in or anything, but I'm just saying it was really great fun. And the conference in Toronto that I went to was okay. But I still think London is by far the best venue for things like that, just because of the typical British sense of humour, you know, and the fact that British people being the way they are, you know, open to conversations and intelligent humour.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know, but I love the multinationalness of the crowd as well. I love the fact that you know you're talking to people and they're from Germany and Holland and you know South America, and it just doesn't stop. I love all that. I think
Did you
it's
have many
really,
people recognise you, apart from the people that obviously knew who you were?
yeah, a couple of people, yeah. And I was sort of slightly embarrassed that I didn't necessarily know who they were until they told me. Oh yes, I know who you are now. You know, maybe they hadn't got a photograph on their Twitter, but no, it was lovely. It was lovely because I post all sorts of crap on my Twitter. I mean, I'm interested in crypto, but then I'm equally interested in health issues as well, and you know, sort of new, let's call it new physics, physics that Daniel doesn't necessarily approve of.
New
And
physics? What's that?
well, I believe in the electric universe. You have to look it up sometime.
Oh, okay.
I think everything's electric. I don't think the sun is powered by nuclear fusion. I think it's an anode. But anyway, you can look at that at your own leisure. It's not a widely held opinion, but it's something I enjoy, and it overlaps with my interest in health issues as well. So I post all sorts of nonsense on my Twitter feed. So I'm always kind of amazed that anybody stays following me, because it's so diverse, and so it's not like I just talk about crypto. So I do feel a bit for anybody who does sort of hang in there and follow me, because I'm, you know, I can start having anti-vax arguments with people. I'm I'd call myself an ex-vaxxer, but you know, I can spend sometimes days having arguments about that. So
Right.
anyone,
Oh, yeah. 'Cause I know that you and River sort of see eye to eye on that one, don't you?
oh, we do. But you know, we're sort of the walking wounded a bit. So you know, it's a matter of personal experience most of the time. If you haven't been, you know, harmed by a vaccine, you probably would think they were great. But
Yeah.
anyway, again, a subject for another occasion. But yeah, so to have anybody following me really and then recognize me is amazing, because I just think, you know, well done you for not unsubscribing. To be honest with you. But that's the thing. I like to think, and I might be wrong about this, I might be deluding myself, but I do like to think that I am pretty good at spotting a good new thing. So, you know, like with the internet, the second that I heard about it, I was like, oh, right, so that changes everything. And I spent the next couple of years, you know, trying to convince work colleagues and things of the same thing, that the internet would really change everything, and that we'd be doing business online, and you know, and it would just revolutionize the earth and so on. And so I do spot these things a little bit ahead of others. I don't, blowing my own trumpet a bit there, but I do genuinely think I'm pretty good at spotting truth when I see it. That's how I'd like to put it. Doesn't mean I'm right in all cases, because I entertain ideas without dismissing them. I think that's probably what I do differently than most people, is that I'm not afraid to entertain an idea that sounds a bit hokey without dismissing it. And a lot of people, when they're given some new information that doesn't make a lot of sense initially, will sort of close their minds to it and feel embarrassed to go down and check it out and see. And I think it's probably the same with Craig Wright as well. I think a lot of people saw his sort of brusque demeanor and the fact that he's raging at people on Twitter and stuff, and they just put their hand up and they walk away in the other direction. They don't. But for me, if I see somebody being roundly criticised by everyone, or something shut down, conversations that are being shut down actively by people, or ridiculed or shamed for having those conversations, that is where I go. That is where I look, because that's where the interesting stuff, the gold really lies, is in the fringes, is where nobody wants to look. It's outside the Overton window,
Absolutely. And on that, Ruth, I've just looked at the clock and we've been going for exactly 1 hour.
No, brilliant.
Brilliant. So let me just press the stop button and wrap it up. This has been great. Here we go.
Yes.